In this video, we're going to talk about 5 upcoming action combat MMOs that I'm very excited for, and I think maybe you should be excited for as well. And some of them are probably going to be playable this year. So let's jump in. First, let me just quickly explain the difference between tab and action combat. I know most of you will probably know. Basically, I'm going to call action combat anything other than tab target. And tab target is basically where you can click an enemy, you do your abilities, and they don't miss. They may have a statistical chance of missing, but it's not like your aim is relevant. New World is action combat, World of Warcraft is tab target. Okay, there are possibly going to be games that blur the line, so just keep that in mind. The first game that I do actually want to talk about though is Soulframe. Now you might be thinking that Soulframe sounds an awful lot like Warframe, and you would be right. It is actually being made by the same developers. And we think it's probably going to be quite a similar game, but except being in a sci-fi universe like Warframe, it's going to be in a more fantasy setting. Now this game does obviously feature action combat, and it looks like it has a very interesting way of doing so. Simply blocking or doing an attack will lock you onto a target automatically. It's not like there's a button to cycle through, you just do the attack and the game will lock on for you. There's been single player games that have done that before, but I've never seen it in an MMO. There probably is somebody's going to be like, actually Jay, it was in XYZ, but I've personally never seen it, and it's very exciting. And what's more, Soulframe apparently might actually be getting a release this year with its Prelude. So Prelude is going to be sort of like the starting chapter. They're not going to be developing this like a classic MMO where it's just everything all at once. It's going to be sort of done in chapters as it is free to play, but obviously there'll be like cosmetics and stuff like that. You'll play it and that will be the end of it. And there is another question if this is even an MMO or not. We think it'll be sort of similar to Warframe, where there'll probably be like hub areas, but when you actually go and do dungeons, you'll just automatically party up with a party, which I think might be up to 4 people. Don't quote me on the numbers, I can't remember. So the missions will be grouped and the hub area will be a community, but it's not going to have like an open world, seamless world, I think, where there's like thousands of people running around. I don't think that's coming in Soulframe. But other than that, I think the game looks very interesting and I'm very excited for it. The next game I do want to talk about is Crono Odyssey. Now, we know pretty much nothing about this game. Well, we know a couple of things, but they're not really very helpful. We have the trailer, which definitely implies some kind of action combat with a possible lock-on. Similar to Soulframe, but maybe it's actually going to be more similar to something like New World has implemented, where it's actually a click of the button. We'll have to wait and see. Soulframe is being made by MPixel and published by Kakao. Now I know for some of you that might send you running, but we'll have to wait and see. The game itself, as I said, we don't actually know anything about the mechanics apart from it's got this like chrono thing that you can maybe like revert time. Who knows how that's going to actually play out? We'll have to wait and see again. Apparently, they started this game in 2019, but then at a recent panel where they were talking about the Unreal Engine, they said they fully committed to the game in 2021. The game is going to have PvE and PvP, if you look at their Steam page. And yeah, we don't really know anything beyond that. It sort of feels like with this one, they're ramping up to a release sometime soon because the marketing is sort of coming out, but the exact date is unknown. It could very easily be end of 2024, but you know what? It could be the end of 2025 or beyond. We'll just have to hope that it's coming soon. The next game I want to talk about is Dune Awakening. At this point, a lot of you are probably familiar with Dune Awakening. With the release of the Dune 2 film, they went on a bit of a marketing blitz. They had like an official direct. There was lots of interviews and all that kind of stuff, and I think some YouTubers and some media actually went and played the game. However, not much is actually known about the gameplay in a very weird way because we've not seen much of the gameplay. It's a bit weird like that. It is being made by Funcom, and we do know that it's a survival crafting game. We know you can harvest water from the blood of your enemies. We know there's going to be spice that you go and collect. We've not actually seen anybody sort of play it, so we're not 100% sure what it will be like. The character customizer looks great. Obviously, the lore is something that a lot of people enjoy. We think it'll be an action combat game because their previous games have typically been action combat games, and we think it's a proper MMO because that's what they keep telling us. When might it come out? Well, nobody really knows that one yet again. I feel like they wanted to capitalize on the hype of Dune 2, the film, which is why they did some information there. I suspect we'll hear more about Summer Games Fest, but if we don't, that almost assuredly, I would assume, means next year. Now, IGN did say it was going to early access at the end of this year, but then obviously Funcom has said that's not a legitimate thing. We never said that, so we don't really know for sure. It's an exciting game, but one we don't know too much about really. But let's hope it's good. The next one is going to be Arcage 2. Now we know a little bit more about Arcage 2 than we do Crono Odyssey, but we still don't know necessarily a great deal. What we have is a couple of trailers and a couple of dev interviews, but nothing really substantial. It looks like it will be an action combat game set in the Unreal Engine, which by the way, so is Crono Odyssey, so is June Awakening. And we know it's being developed by XL Games, who are owned by Kakao, therefore it will be published by Kakao Games. And it is set obviously in the Arcage universe, but it sounds like it's going to be quite a massive departure from Arcage 1, which I think was pretty much a well-renowned game. It just sort of suffered a little bit of pay to win, and that sort of killed it for many people. Arcage 2, though, we think is not going to be focusing on mass PvP. They said that they will be concentrating on smaller guild versus guild stuff. So again, this is another one where we'll have to wait and see what it's actually like in terms of its gameplay, but it's an action combat game being made by a studio that has made MMOs before, so it's definitely one to keep an eye out on. Now I'm very much aware that Arcage 1 was recently shuttered, and that could be a prelude to the fact that Arcage 2 is coming, or it could just simply be coincidence because there's not enough people who play that game. Either way, this is another one I'm highly looking forward to. Now the last game on this list is actually one I'm not personally looking forward to that much, and that is PAX Day. However, I'm going to do some honourable and dishonourable mentions after this one, so stick around. But the game I'm going to talk about here is PAX Day. Now, PAX Day's first alpha showed a lot of promise. There was a lot of hype around it. Asmongold, everybody was making positive videos. The crafting looked very good when people building their own massive structures and stuff like that. The gathering was a little bit rough around the edges. The combat was very rough indeed, but we thought it showed promise. And then they did two things. They spoke about their monetization, and I'm not going to speak about it too much here, but it's possible that they'll have like a pay to win, you can buy gold type of currency. But they also announced the release windows. We would have Alpha 2 in Q1 2024, and then they would go into early access in spring this year. Well, they delayed Alpha 2 by a month, and I would suspect that there'll be a knock-on when it comes to early access as well. Unfortunately, Alpha 2 didn't seem to be quite as well received. Basically, they added a small PvP zone, they added some changes to the combat, but the combat still wasn't very interesting, but it is sort of like a placeholder. And it appears that they actually made gathering the materials a lot grindier as far as I can tell. I never actually played it, I was on holiday, but that's what appeared to happen. Now, I think most people would agree that it doesn't seem like it's ready for early access, but if you believe them, it's coming out in early access within the next 2 months. I don't think that's likely. I think PAX Day has a lot of promise. I think going into early access so early is probably a waste, but hopefully by the time it gets to released, we'll see some massive changes, and it might actually be worth playing. One to keep an eye on, if not one to jump in with early access in my opinion. And then I said we'll do some honourable and dishonourable mentions. I'm not going to tell you which is which. So the first one is going to be Once Human. That's coming out in Q3. It's basically an apocalyptic shooter MMO. It's always a bit weird putting shooters in action combat games, because is it technically action combat? Well, yes, because it's not tab target. That's what I spoke about at the start. I will call this an action combat game. It's being developed by NetEase. It's coming out this year, as I said. A lot of people were having a lot of fun with it. I never actually played it because I was busy with something else. But, you know, when this actually comes out, it might be something I dip my toes into. It's got PvP, it's got PvE. It's like a weird, I almost want to call it like a Stranger Things kind of vibe. It's actually one to be pretty excited about. It is being made by NetEase, and I know there are some pay-to-win concerns, but I don't know more than that to go into any kind of detail, so I'm not going to. And the next game I want to talk about is Blue Protocol. This is a PvE action anime kind of MMO. It's not been like overly well received in Japan, but I'm assuming that a lot of the kinks will be ironed out by the time it gets to the West. It's being published by Amazon Game Studios over here, and we don't actually know when it's coming. I think it was supposed to come summer, but I haven't seen any finalized information with this one. If you like games like Genshin and you're looking for a more MMO experience, then this could be the one for you. I'll personally give it a try, but the lack of any kind of PvP sort of puts me off a little bit, but I'm not sure that's a deal breaker for me. Makes it sound like I'm some kind of PvP fiend. I'm actually pretty crap at PvP. I just enjoy it. And the next game is going to be Quinnfall. The game we all thought was a scam appears not to be a complete scam. I'm not sure when this one's going to be releasing, but I think the closed beta will be soon, and I'm apparently in that test. I'll be able to give my full feedback. There's been quite a few extra trailers added with this one, and you know what? It looks like it works. The action combat looks passable and functioning. I would actually say that the action combat looks better than PAX Day, by the way, for now. And there's loads of features. It has caravans, building like PAX Day, and much, much more. I'll not talk about whether or not it's a scam. I don't think it's a scam. I think it's probably going to be a slightly scuffed MMO. It's not going to be one that like rivals WoW or anything like that, but it looks playable, it looks passable, and I'm sort of looking forward to playing it myself. But yeah, they're the 5 plus a few extras that I'm quite excited to play. Some of them might come out in 2024, some of them probably going to be a little bit beyond. Soulframe, as I said, should be playable this year in its prelude form. Crono Odyssey, that could easily be from now until 3 years away. I have absolutely no idea. The marketing sort of implies sooner rather than later, but who knows? And it's sort of the same with Dune Awakening. It implies it would be soon because they've been doing marketing. However, then they've gone a little bit more like radio silence. That could very easily be the end of this year, like IGN said, in some kind of early access form, or it could be the end of next year. We don't know. Arcage 2, we actually do have a bit of a release window for that. I think there was supposed to be a beta test at the end of 2024. That has been moved to the start of 2025. And what was recently said in an investor document is that it'll be post 2025. However, that might mean financial year 2026, and that all gets a little bit complicated. So that could be next year, but it's almost certainly not this year. PAX Day, as I said, is early access this year. Its full release, well, if I was a betting man, I'd say it's 3 years away minimum. Once Human is this year. Quinnfall, playable in beta this year, but release, I'd suspect, probably next. And Blue Protocol should be this year. Did I miss anything? Do let me know in the comments below. Beyond that, what did you think about the games that I listed? Do let me know. I'd be very interested to see what you have to say. For now, if you want to support me, then becoming a Patreon is truly the best way. Or you can come and watch me on Twitch. I'm still playing New World because, you know, I don't know. Don't ask me. For now, have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.